Hello, this is Brother Oates. Psalm 23, verse number 4. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. That little word yea is a connecting word. It connects the first three verses with the last three verses. There are contrasts, some sharp and some very subtle. For example, God is mentioned in the third person in the first three verses. He maketh me. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness. Even in verse 4, He restoreth my soul. But in verse number 4, he's mentioned in the second person. For thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. David, when he speaks of himself, says, He maketh me. He leadeth me. But the wording changes in verse number 4. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. And so the wording of David is more personal in verse number 4. The first three verses, it's green pastures and still waters and level paths of righteousness. However, in verse number 4, it's the valley. And it's a valley that no one would choose, the valley of the shadow of death. But back to that connecting word, yea. Did you know in verse 3, the paths of righteousness will lead us even in the valleys, and perhaps even the valley of the shadow of death? Because as we follow our shepherd, there are times in our life and journey that he will take us through the valley. That's another key word in verse number 4. Valleys are not necessarily permanent. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Valleys are times of crisis, danger, darkness, uncertainty. And our natural response is almost always fear. But there are things that we will learn in the valley that we'll never learn anywhere else. One of the greatest lessons that we'll learn is this lesson. These four words. Thou art with me. Oh, I hope you learn that lesson. In the valley, when you need him the most, understand he's right there. Hebrews chapter 13 and verse number 5 says, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. Verse 6 says, so that we may boldly say, the Lord is my helper, and I will not fear what man shall do unto me. What a lesson. What a lesson. Did you know that the fact that in the valley you know God is there can alleviate your fear? Understand, the valley is the pathway to something better. In the first three verses, David was talking about God. In the last three verses, David is talking to God. Keep walking. You'll make it through the valley, even the valley of the shadow of death. Bereans, search the scriptures. God bless you.